Onto this now. The Democratic Alliance's Cape Metro region is disputing the party's mayoral selection process. As a result, the DA has decided to postpone the Cape Town mayoral candidate presentations, which were due to take place today. Three party candidates, that's the current mayor, Dan Plato, the party's provincial leader and transport MEC, Bongos Matigizela, and the party's shadow finance minister, Jordan Hill-Lewis, are set to present before the party's internal selection panel. Newzroom Afrika's Artim Tongana has more on this story, and she joins us live now. Artie, good morning. So, what is, as a result of this, what's resulted, perhaps I should say, to this postponement?
An internal dispute, Oli, and I can tell you that battle lines have been drawn. The race is on to select the new mayor for Cape Town. But of course, the party has to deal with an internal dispute with regards to the selection panel that is due to hear these presentations from all three candidates, as you mentioned, the current mayor of Cape Town, Dan Plato, the MEC for Transport and Public Works, who also happens to be the provincial leader of the party in the Western Cape, Bongos Matigizela, as well as the party's shadow minister for finance, who's also a member of parliament, Jordan Hill-Lewis. They were due to make presentations today before that internal selection panel. Now, I have with me the spokesperson for the Democratic Alliance, the national spokesperson, Siviwe. Thank you so much for your time. Now, there's been a slight delay, if I may put it that way, with regards to selecting a candidate that would start campaigning really for that Cape Town mayoral position ahead of the local government elections. Take us through the facts and what led to this postponement.
Yeah. Good morning, Ati, and good morning to your viewers. So just a number of things, some technical aspects regarding this process. A selection panel, when it comes to mayoral candidates, particularly when it comes to selecting a mayoral candidate for a metro, are made up of three parts. 10 of them come from the federal executive, 5 of them come from the provincial executive, and 5 of them come from the regional executive. In this case, it would be the city of Cape Town. Now, there are candidate nomination regulations which literally guide the party as to who can form part and who cannot form part and who is precluded. The FedEx part was concluded, the provincial executive part was concluded, and it was when the regional executive made their nominations to who will form part of the panel that a dispute was raised on the interpretation of Section 9.5 and 9.6 of the nomination regulations, and that is now why the regional executive has declared a dispute, because there's now a differencing of opinion as to who can and who cannot serve part of this panel.
Now, I'm interested to find out, this has been a process that has been followed by the Democratic Alliance for years. Would this then affect the adjudication over this entire dispute? Would it affect other provinces in the country with regards to these processes that are supposed to take place in the selection of mayors for all these metros?
Look, I mean, it's such a technical aspect that in the past, it's kind of been left for the interpretation of who the ombudsman is. So in this case, the ombudsman is Mr. Van Horn, who has said, look, I mean, there are certain things, if we want to make sure that this process, a very highly contested process, obviously in our organization, we take this seriously. Cape Town is our flagship municipality. So this is something that is really highly contested. And what the ombudsman wanted to do was to make sure that the process is beyond reproach. And so the interpretation of these sections, yes, could affect other metros, but perhaps, you know, the reality is that other metros could, you know, select other people who they want to serve on the regional executive on behalf of the regional executive. So now this is really about crossing the T's, dotting I's, making sure that the panel that is chosen is beyond reproach, because what we can't afford is a situation where this is taken on review if certain candidates aren't successful. And so the party has now decided to refer this to the Federal Legal Commission in order for them to make a determination whether the dispute is valid or not. And then it's on that basis then that we will finalize a panel and can move on with the process.
So it will certainly affect other metros in as far as the decision that would be made by the Legal Commission.
Yeah, the interpretation. I mean, if the interpretation holds in the way that it's been done now, then of course it could really affect other metros, and that could, be the status quo going forward.
And now I want to bring you to the top three candidates. They are very well-known political figures within the Democratic Alliance, especially in the Western Cape and the city of Cape Town. Your Bonginkosi Madikizela, your Dan Plato is the current mayor, and then Jordan Hill-Lewis, who's a member of parliament who works closely with you in the parliamentary precinct. Now, won't you talk to us about what they were supposed to do today?
Yeah. So, as you know, today was meant to be the sitting of the selection panel. So ultimately what the Democratic Alliance has decided to do, that when it elects its candidates, it's on the basis of various criteria that has been decided long before even candidates are selected. And so they were meant to go through an interview process of this 20 people heavy panel, where they would be questioned on various things regarding the job at hand, also regarding political acumen, testing various things. And so that was the interview that was meant to be taking place today. But it will be taking place soon as the Federal Legal Commission is able to make a determination on this. Because ultimately, Ati, what we want to make sure is that each and every one of those three candidates feels as though that process was fair. And even other people and other members of the organization must have faith in our internal processes. And that's why we must never shy away from revisiting them, reinterpreting them, and reinterpreting phrases and clauses in our constitution if things are ambiguous.
Talking about not shying away, one can certainly not shy away from the public sentiment that has come out with regards to the three candidates. A lot of opinions coming up from members of the public that Jordan Hill-Lewis would be the most viable man and the person that would probably be chosen for the job simply because of the pigmentation and the color of his skin. He went on to debunk this narrative when I interviewed him. A lot of people saying Bonginkosi Madikizela, on the other hand, is going to be viewed as another experiment of the Democratic Alliance. I'm interested to find out what the DA's view is with regards to all the public sentiments that have been coming up from members of the public, especially around this experiment notion that has been thrown around.
Look, actually, I do want to assure members of the public and South Africa at large that this process, the reason why it's so highly contested and so contentious and also so thorough, is so that it can literally be on the basis of who is the best person for the job. And that is why the process is long. That's why the process is incredibly thorough, so that we can make sure that whichever candidate, and that's why, we started off with 5 candidates, 2 of whom were screened out. We are now left with the 3 candidates that you've mentioned. And the reason why we now have to go through a 20-man panel to make sure that the suitability of these people is something that we are all confident about is because we care about the credibility of the process. And so the notion that somehow black leaders in the organization are somehow shunted or viewed as experiments is something that the organization does not believe. And I don't speak on behalf of Mr. Leon or Mr. Maimane, as both of them are former leaders of the organization. I do, however, speak on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, and I can say this with certainty, that no black leader in this organization is viewed as an experiment. In fact, all leaders in this organization are viewed on the basis of what they can offer.
How did that make, I'm just interested, before I let you go, Siviwe, how did that then make leaders, particularly the black leaders of the party, feel when this was out in the public domain? And there were a lot of discussions around what you exactly pointed out to, that there's this narrative that the black leaders in the party are viewed as experiments. How did that settle with particularly the black politicians within the Democratic Alliance?
Look, I think a lot of my colleagues, and myself included, understand that he is a former leader who has written a book and has advanced a certain argument, whether or not you agree with it. And it's up to Mr. Leon to unpack and explain his utterances around this. And Mr. Maimane is also very much within his rights to, have a response to this. Ultimately, I think a lot of my colleagues were of the view that we've got a lot of things that we've got to work hard at. The organization has gone through a period of renewal, a period of having to work really hard to win back the trust of many South Africans. And so that's the task at hand for many of us. And we can't let ourselves be distracted by the views of people who are no longer part of the organization. But ultimately, the reason why I went and veered into this line of questioning with you is to say, to the people of South Africa that we take this seriously. A mayor of Cape Town is somebody that we have to entrust with the flagship municipality, not just in the country, but in the world. And so we will make sure that it is the best person on the basis of merit that is chosen, and that it won't be on the basis of whether or not they are lighter in skin color or not.
All right, fantastic. Siviwe Gwarube, the national spokesperson of the Democratic Alliance, outlining the facts with regards to this process that is due to take place inevitably to, of course, select a candidate that would stand as the next mayor of Cape Town. The battle is on, and the battle lines have been drawn. We wait with bated breath as Cape Townians and certainly as members of the South African public on who will be chosen to be the next mayor of Cape Town.
Atim Tongana live for us in Cape Town. Thank you very much for that update.